Welcome to the Oncology Voice Network Podcast, connecting the voices that move oncology drug development forward.
Welcome to the Oncology Voice Network Podcast. I'm Dr. Kirk Shepard. This show brings the real-world voices of oncology drug development to life. Leaders, innovators, patients, and partners who are shaping the future of cancer care. Today, we're focusing on a topic covered in Chapter 8 of our book, Innovation Partners in Action, Accelerating Cancer Cures. My guest is Rebecca Goldstein, VP of Strategy and Communications at OVN. Together, we'll discuss what innovation partners, or IPs, are, and the importance of transparent and timely communication between IPs and manufacturers, and so much more. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Kirk, thank you for having me.
You were one of the contributors to our newly released Forbes book, Voices of Oncology. And I'd like you to tell your story of how you got involved with the book. But please, first, I'd like to hear about your career leading up to Voices of Oncology. If you could cover that for me, please.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here. I started out as a basic scientist. So I have a PhD in cell biology and immunology and left the bench in about 2008. And I like to say I was an okay scientist, but I was a great communicator. So I made the jump into industry via medical communications. I had the privilege of growing up in some really strong medcoms companies. I started out at Knowledge Point 360, which is now a part of Anesio, and then made a transition exclusively over to medical affairs with Allegiant, which is now part of Envision Pharma. So all really strong companies. I've had a really thorough career in medcoms on the services side. I've done some other things as well, and am now part of the commercial team at Abeona Therapeutics, which is a cell and gene therapy company in Cleveland. So I became involved in Voices of Oncology via a connection when I was at Envision Pharma. And let me stop first and just say, for most of my career, I've been focused in oncology. That was not a strategic choice I made back in the day. That was a happy accident of me being an immunologist and entering the industry right at the point when immuno-oncology drugs were taking off. And immuno-oncology drugs tend to have lots of different indications that come in a rolling fashion. So I've had the opportunity to work in about 30 different cancer types, either doing medical communications, medical strategy, consulting. I've done a lot of different roles on the services side. So in one of those roles, I led an oncology strategy group over at Envision Pharma. So at the point when Meg Heim was Envision's CEO, she introduced me to the project that was Voices of Oncology because of my experience in oncology and on the services side. And I just fell in love with that unmet need, particularly because I have lived it. And we'll talk a bit more about Voices of Oncology, but it was exciting that there were more contributors to that chapter, the chapter on working with service providers, innovation partners in oncology, than any other chapter. And that was exciting to me because these were companies that on the outside would compete against each other for business, but we all saw the unmet need as it was in Voices of Oncology, which was all of us need to talk to each other more frequently, better, earlier, and get out of the silos that we're operating in. And Kirk, you're the editor. Do you want to just quickly tell our audience what Voices of Oncology is in your own words?
Yeah. Voices of Oncology, as I said, it's a book just been released by Amazon about 2 months ago. It's a book about the voices, the partners of oncology, and how we can work together better to have faster cures for cancer. And one of the things I loved about working on this book, we interviewed over 30 experts, was the passion that you've just told us about from you for this subject of people coming together really to work together, not worrying about what company they're from, but just thinking about the patient, about how we're going to get this drug to the market for their use. So it has all the partner voices in there. One of my favorite chapters, and I know I may say this to all the authors, but one of my favorite was Innovation Partners, the one that you're just talking about, because to me, this is a unique partner. And what I loved about that chapter is how you all aligned. You had more authors than anybody else, but also you aligned on the definitions. In other words, in this chapter, you hear the definition of innovation partner. How is it different than a solution provider or a vendor? And maybe you could just go over that. Just tell me about the definition of innovation partner.
Yes, absolutely. That was something that we all agreed on because we all came from companies that make a particular investment to be innovation partners. Now, it may seem on the surface that the term innovation partner is synonymous with a service provider or a solution provider, and I don't think that's true. So there are companies whose business model is set up to provide transactional services. And the way that you get more business is you become reliable at delivering those quality services as and when your clients need. That's a great business model. But innovation partners do that and they go beyond that and make a particular investment to be an expert in an area, to have something that they are thought leaders in. And in that case, the business model requires that the company spend a little bit more on a certain level of personnel that have that expertise, or they invest a little more at setting up things like centers of excellence so that the clients can come in and take advantage of that expertise when they need. And innovation partners as companies, there's nothing wrong or right about being an innovation partner versus having a more transactional business model. But to me, that's the difference, is the expertise and the fact that you're sometimes bringing something into the client's company that they don't have. Sometimes you're extending a service or an area of expertise that already exists within a manufacturer who's your client, but other times you're bringing in that expertise either because the clients don't have it internally or they don't have it yet. Maybe in some cases it's too early to hire a full medical affairs team, for instance, but you can bring in an innovation partner whose specialty is medical affairs and take advantage of that expertise while you build the capability in-house. That's the difference.
Coming from the perspective of an innovation partner, what does it mean to you for oncology to have a place for all these partners to come together?
People who work at innovation partners and people who work at manufacturers, we all have the same goal in mind, especially people like me, a self-ascribed oncology lifer. I want to see patients helped. I want to see cures faster. So we're all on the same side, as it were. Sometimes silos get erected between the internal teams and the external innovation partners, and it impedes that common goal for the sake of whatever reason. We can talk about that later. But it's frustrating to be on the side of the innovation partner and to be playing on the same team and to not be able to give 100% because there are communication barriers in place.
So the theme of the book, Voices of Oncology and OVN, which we'll talk about later, has been breaking silos. So what's your perspective on how these silos slow the drug development, particularly in oncology?
Well, some common issues that I observed on the service provider side is sometimes the clients will bring in the expertise too late, or they'll bring it in at arm's length. This can look like either underscoping, when the service provider makes a recommendation, here's what you need to bring in this expertise, but then the client company agrees to this much, and it really hamstrings the partner from providing the full service that we know is needed. There's also an issue of maybe not giving the innovation partner all of the information that they need to do a good job. A common example is involving a top-notch medcoms company to come in and help you with your strategic publication planning. This is a lot of what companies do, and that's why they involve medcoms companies. Kirk, I know you've worked with companies like that in the past. And one of the first steps is, well, share your strategy with us. Tell us what you want, where you want to be versus where you are now. And failing to share that strategy in its complete form, particularly key documents like the medical plan, because you're thinking to yourself, well, this is an external company. They really don't need this information. I'm not going to share this in its full form. Sometimes that could be fine, but it does risk that you're paying for this expert partner to come in and give you expert advice, and that advice is ill-informed. So the lack of transparent communication because of silos can result in delivery that can be stunted, or at minimum, more back and forth while the partner gets all the information that they need. And at worst, it can even result in delivery of a product that's inferior because it's ill-informed.
So it's about being transparent, and then timely communication.
Yeah.
Manufacturers may tend to shy away from that, particularly because innovation partners are external entities. So what's the cost of that if they do?
Well, I'll pause there and say the innovation partner does have to earn the trust. Sometimes, if it's a new partnership, it just takes some time. It takes some time for both sides to get comfortable with each other. There's also, of course, got to be adequate legal documentation in place. There's got to be NDAs so that the client feels comfortable sharing. There's got to be master service agreements set up. But assuming all that's been done, sometimes it just takes some time for the two teams to get used to each other culturally. All of that aside, though, there are some companies in which it is just challenging. It's not culturally acceptable to share information externally, either because it's not something the company's used to or because they have maybe even bad experiences in the past with investing in a partner and the partner did not deliver what they said they were going to deliver. But in general, lack of transparent communication does create extra work on both sides. Nobody likes that, right? And a case example would be back to the publication plan. If you don't give your publication plan expert all of the information they need, then you may look at a first draft of your pub plan and go, well, this isn't right. They didn't consider XYZ. Well, you didn't share XYZ. So then you have to go back, share more information, extra drafts, scope overages. It wastes time not to be transparent with each other. So both sides need to make the commitment to invest in each other and nurture that relationship so that there can be transparent communication.
This seems so natural to me, this trust and transparency between people like innovation partners. I mean, they have such in-depth expertise compared to a lot of us, what we could have in pharma. They're dedicated to certain areas. And maybe it's because I'm biased, because when I was brought into the industry from University of Chicago, Cleveland Clinic, I was a clinician. I did research on the outside. But when I got into pharma, I didn't know anything. In fact, I was at a small subsidiary for a larger company, didn't have anyone around who could teach me. And where did I learn everything? Was from the innovation partners. In other words, my best friends were the CROs. I learned all about, clinical development as far as the agencies. So I always felt I owed them a lot, and it was always natural for me to go to the outside to get their expertise far more than what we could do in the company itself. So I just hope that people realize that the trust has to be developed there and to appreciate what expertise they can bring into the company.
Absolutely. I can also speak from personal experience that people who work at innovation partner companies are committed to being there. They're, usually well compensated. The company, like I said, is investing in having experts in the fold, but those experts are usually in high demand across other companies as well. And it's very fulfilling on the innovation partner side to hear experiences like that, to hear that not only you're doing a good job with the project or the ask at hand, but also that you're developing good relationships in the industry. You're making friends and you're helping somebody else further their career with your knowledge. We all love that. And the another bonus is if you set up a relationship that has transparent communication and a truly open partnership, you're not only giving the IP, the innovation partner, what they want from a business perspective, you're ensuring that the people who were working from the innovation partner are going to give 110, 120%. Of course, we're going to go the extra mile if we're working with a client that we truly have a partnership with. Of course, a curveball gets thrown. We're going to go toe-to-toe right there alongside you because we genuinely care about the project and the product, particularly if it's a long-term commitment like a full launch cycle. I can attest to really going above and beyond in many cases because I had set up a relationship with a client that was similar to what you described.
So you mentioned having the many authors in your IP or innovation partner chapter was empowering. How was that?
It was empowering because these are people that we compete with for business, right? To be able to muck in with these people and work on a chapter, and all of us were aligned. All of us had seen the same patterns throughout our careers. All of us had seen the same solutions work in situations in the past. That's what was empowering, to just see people who were on the outside were competing against each other, coming together for the good of the oncology community. Let's make this part of communication better. Let's break down this silo together. Who wouldn't love that?
So I mentioned that I've been working with innovation partners since the very beginning of my career, and that's long ago. I'd like to know what you think about the value proposition for the innovation partners as far as how has that changed over the years, let's say from 20 or 30 years ago. That gives you an idea of how long I've been in the industry. And then what's different about that value in the space of oncology.
Coming up on 20 years myself, I have seen it change, particularly in a space like oncology. The competition that we face today as companies is just so much different than it was even 20 years ago. And that means more pressure for everyone to, get by with less, particularly on the manufacturing side. All of the timelines for the development programs have been truncated. You got to go, 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 go. You got to move fast, 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 fast. And you've got to make do with less. So all of that creates a strain on internal resources within companies, particularly programs that have to move very, very quickly in oncology and complicated, complex areas. It's best practice at the beginning when you're setting your strategy for a program to consider angles like making sure all of the audience members that you're going to be communicating with, all of the external stakeholders, that you know what the unmet needs are, that you have the perspective of what they go through in the space right now. But in order to do that thoroughly requires a significant investment in time. And even in larger companies, sometimes you don't have a full-fledged team at the beginning. You're working with a smaller early development or life cycle team who may be splitting their time with something else. They may be learning the therapy area for the first time. They may not have the relationships that they need because they're still developing them. That means that the value proposition for external experts to supplement what's going on internally is higher than ever now. You can't always just hire an expert in a new therapy area to be your new medical director on a dime. Sometimes those funds are gated until you get to a certain point in the program. Other times the candidates just aren't there or they're not something that's within your budget. It's a cost-effective and really smart solution to bring in an external partner to further your internal learning and then also to supplement your internal expertise. That's a just-in-time need that an innovation partner can meet. And that's always been the case for innovation partners, but it's that much more important these days in oncology because programs are moving faster. More and more and more programs exist, so you've got tighter competition and launch dynamics are changing. There's more to look at than just the commercialization aspect. You've got to really think multifactorially, even from the phase 1 part of the program, which is an incredible investment a lot of companies would struggle to make if it weren't for external partners.
Help everybody out here a little bit. Ideally, what should a relationship look like between the innovation partner and the client?
Well, that's a good question because there's, I think, a range of different personalities that come into play and a range of different cultures that come across in different companies. One thing that I've seen consistently is both parties seeking to establish trust right there, right from the beginning, and also seeking to understand how do I fit into this existing culture as a newcomer. And that's on the IP side and then also on the client side as well. On the innovation partner side, what that looks like is being transparent and honest from the get-go. And that means listening effectively from the very first conversations you have with your client to truly understand what they need and where they are. That is as opposed to listening well enough so that you can plug in one of your services and sell them something. Clients recognize when they're being pitched to, and if you're getting pitched something that you need, that's great, but that's not the same as really effectively listening as a partner would. So that's how the innovation partner can come to the table, truly coming from the perspective of how can I help this person? Or even more basic than that, let's work to understand the need. And this also includes being really honest about where your services and your expertise end. There have been a lot of cases in my career where I was introduced to a new client and I thought going into the first kickoff call that I knew what they needed. But it was clear after 15 or 30 minutes that I only had 70 or 80% of what they needed. Or maybe I wasn't bringing the right partner to the table at all. The innovation partner needs to be honest and say, this is what we can do, but we are not the expert in this area. And maybe even recommending if you have people in your network that would be able to help. And in the short term, you may get less business from that client. But in the long term, what you've done is you've established yourself as a trustworthy partner so that when your services are needed later on, then that client is more likely to come to you. On the client side, as I mentioned, it looks like really appropriately sharing information as you can and being less worried about an external partnership. If you're worried about sharing externally to the extent you need to, then that's a contract issue. That's not a conversation issue. That's something that you can establish at the beginning to make sure that you can give the partner the information that they need.
So what do we hope that the innovation partner experience will be like in the OVN community?
Innovation partners, like I said, are experts. And nobody who is an expert likes to feel like they're on the outside looking in. So my hope for the OVN community is that manufacturers and innovation partners can all sit at the table together and nobody feels like they're being left out of the conversation. That's sort of a touchy-feely description of what I hope it is. Practically speaking, what it is that all companies who have an expertise on a particular topic have unfettered access to each other's expertise. That's really what breaking silos down is all about. This means everything from connecting and establishing relationships to also sharing best practices with each other. And then obviously there will be opportunities for the innovation partners to develop business connections that'll help them. But that's not the primary focus of OVN as a community. The primary focus is so that we can all communicate better and learn from each other, share best practices. That's my vision for what's going on.
Can you give an overview then of the different ways that IPs or even other people can be partners as far as different ways of connecting with OVN?
Well, the simplest way is simply to join. So if you want a seat at the table, all you have to do is go to oncologyvoicenetwork.com and create a presence for yourself there. It's free to join, and you'll have access to the other people who are already members. This is a mix of people from the manufacturing side and other innovation partners. So that's the easiest part. We have, though, also put together sponsorship packages by virtue of OVN being a concentrated group of oncology professionals. It makes it a great channel. So if you as a service provider have a service that you feel like is differentiated and that you've seen in past experience has a real value proposition to this particular set of professionals, you can use OVN as a channel. So some of the ways that OVN can be used as a channel by an innovation partner are you can sponsor an episode, just like what we're doing right now. You can co-create the content with the experts at OVN and use that as a way to really showcase that expertise that you're investing so much in. We also can do the same thing with live events, and we're also putting together an advisory council where manufacturers and innovation partners are sitting at the table together discussing the vision of OVN and how to take that vision forward to best meet the needs of the members. All of those things, we are actively looking at how do we enrich the innovation partner community? How do we get new and different companies involved that aren't currently represented? So those are all really productive ways that innovation partners can not only get involved in OVN as a community, but to make your voice heard, to make that expertise that you work so hard to cultivate shine to a whole new audience.
Rebecca, thank you very much for your insights today, and also your contributions to the Voices of Oncology book. We really appreciated your passion, your work drive, and we look forward to your continued partnership in OVN.
Well, I love oncology. I'm an oncology lifer, so you'll continue to see me around. And thank you for the opportunity, Kirk. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm Dr. Kirk Shepard. Thanks for listening and for being a part of the conversation that's moving oncology forward.